So I had this friend who was into sci-fi in a big way. You know, books, movies, TVs, shows, games, you name it. If it was sci-fi, even bad sci-fi, she would love it. Just so long as it had an element that was new or interesting to her, she would accept it with open arms. As it so happens, that friend had never seen the Star Wars films, and as fans of sci-fi, myself and her other friends all planned over a series of about 3 days to watch all the Star Wars films out at that time. This is before Episode 7 was out, so it's, just 1 through 6. Well, at the end of it all, we asked her, of course, what her opinion was, and she replied that it wasn't bad, but she had seen it all done before, and in her opinion, with better production qualities or more original spins on it. Honestly, all of us were rather baffled. I mean, this is Star Wars! All those other things she'd loved had gotten their inspiration from Star Wars. But that didn't change the fact that in her experience, she had seen it all done, and done better.
Now, personally, I would argue that the scenes aboard the Death Star between Luke and Vader have yet to be outdone in terms of relaying the thought process of a character with just cinematography and sound design. But that's really beside the point what I'm trying to get at here. What I am getting at is that often, even if something is the originator of a trope or something interesting like that, it doesn't mean it's handled the material the best.
That's sort of how I feel about Never 7: End of Infinity. I absolutely adore some of the ideas it presents, but the whole time I'm playing it, I can't help but think, I've seen this done better. Despite the fact that it is the innovator of these things. Let me get more specific.
On its surface, and for most of its runtime, Never 7 is basically a fairly generic visual novel. What sets it apart is its unique premise. About halfway through your first run, you and your love die. Of course you don't stay dead, instead you wake up back at the start of the 6th day. No matter how hard you try, fate always sends you back, making sure you never reach the 7th day.
Oh hey, I get the name now!
This interesting premise goes pretty underutilized as the game quickly settles into a pattern. Meet girls, woo girl of your choice. Sometimes you have to wait until certain flags have been tripped to woo said girl. Get to know her through fairly standard set of Vian circumstances before watching her die. Often you die too. And then you wake up. Use the knowledge of that past week to try and stop various mishaps from occurring and ultimately saving the girl of that route. I'm gonna take a moment here to summarize each route in a sentence or so, just so we're on the same page here, so bear with me. Yuka is a nice introduction to the basic premise, but there's nothing really special about it, and I find it weird you basically have to insult her a lot to gain affection points with her. The game really ends up jumping the shark with Haruka though. Despite the section being written by an entirely different person other than the director or the scenario writer, and really having very little to do with the plot overall, it's the route that felt the most comfortable in its own skin. The sci-fi elements felt like genuine world building rather than shoehorned elements from another game trying to impose itself on it. Saki was just annoying to deal with. I get what they were going for here, but it just didn't land with me. Also, jumping from Haruka's route to this one, she sure feels the most out of character here. Kurumi had a fun and endearing route, but at this point the larger themes of the game are beginning to undermine the individual routes, and the evidence of route contradiction is becoming too strong to overlook. More on that later. Finally, Izumi's route definitely feels the most indicative of the tropes I was talking about. Suddenly, alternate realities and contradicting elements get explained, but in the worst possible way. I'm not exaggerating that the explanation for all the nonsense of this game is that if someone believes something hard enough, reality warps itself around them to meet their delusions, and your character is gullible enough that he basically believes whatever he's told, so reality keeps warping around whatever he was told last.
So with that out of the way, I'd like to get to the real meat of this video. Never 7 is one of the earliest examples of a number of important tropes in visual novels.
It presents ideas such as repeating routes being explained in-game as some sort of time travel, though admittedly it doesn't do this as well as later entries from Uchikoshi and co. This is also one of the earliest examples of an Uchikoshi staple, mixing real life and pseudo-science into his visual novels to add the slightly more grounded feeling to his fantasy. I mean, basically, for all intents and purposes, his worlds are fantasy ones, but he often dresses them up quite nicely as science fiction ones. And that adds just the slightest bit of grounding to his works, which can make some of the more tense scenarios feel grittier, more real. And this is pulled off with great effect in his more psychologically tense work, the Zero Escape series.
find it truly fascinating how many elements this game shares with well-loved games like 999, Steins Gate, and of course Ever 17, and it did them all first. But how boring and uninteresting the game actually is to play on its own merits.
I get the distinct feeling that these ideas were fully formed in Uchikoshi's mind. They just didn't have enough influence to really implement them in Never 7, leaving us with this weird, watered-down visual novel with sci-fi elements that don't end up adding half as much to the experience as I feel it should. Ironically, the stuff with Haruka is pretty mundane and mostly just involves her being an artificially created human, and yet it's by far the most interesting part of the game. When the magic time traveling mostly takes a back seat, we finally get to learn a bit more about the characters in the world. It really actually works.
I can't help but feel Never 7 is a series of missed opportunities that later games do better. However, I can only say that because I've actually seen what comes after. If I had been a big visual novel fan when this first came out, even the unrefined concepts may have fascinated me to no end. I mean, who knows? But, as it stands now, I can't help but keep saying to myself, I liked this game better when it was Ever 17 or 999. Back to the analogy on Star Wars, and also speaking of Ever 17, if this game, Never 7, is like the new hope of the series, then what I've heard is Ever 17 is supposed to be the Empire Strikes Back of the Infinity series. It's more refined, has a tighter focus, and a bit of a darker tone. It's easily the best love game in that series. I guess we'll find out if I ever get around to actually playing it, For now, Never 7 remains one of those games I can scarcely remember in detail, yet conceptually keeps bouncing around in my mind. For all intents and purposes, this game invented the more meta aspects in visual novels, tying narrative and gameplay mechanics together in a way that's still being echoed to this day. Yet, as its own experience, it's honestly forgettable. It has been forgotten. I don't know. I guess it just goes to show that execution is everything. My name's been Dalin Malma. God bless.